Hello and welcome to the DigiLearn Scott G Suite on Glow. If you've just joined us, my name's George Milliken. I'm joined by my colleague Richard McKean, both in Glasgow and part of the Education Scotland digital learning teams. Your ability to access G Suite will depend on your local authority. Some local authorities may not have signed up to it or made that available yet, so you'll be able to find that on the Glow Launchpad through Classroom. I'm just going to start. I'm going to jump straight in. I'm hoping that we've kind of familiar with the Google Classroom app. If you're not, we have got a webinar that we delivered a couple of weeks ago. We delivered it, I think it's about 2 weeks ago now, and those have been recorded and they're available on our DigiLearn Scott YouTube channel. And you can find those from the webinars page on digilearn.scott. We've got all those recorded webinars that we've delivered already. So from Google Classroom, what I want to cover then today is the sort of main apps that we've got up in the app selector. We want to have a look at Docs, at Slides, at Jamboard and Forms. You can see there's loads of other apps in there. That's content for another day. And certainly go in and have a sort of a dive into that yourselves and explore some of these. So from the approach I've kind of taken is the first two I want to look at are Docs and Slides. Similar to their Microsoft equivalents of Word and PowerPoint. If you're already using those apps, you'll be familiar with the Google versions. And we'll just look at some of the differences and what is available through the Glow tenancy. I've looked at these two apps in a sort of literacy capacity. So if you're teaching literacy, whether that's across the secondary education or primary education, even I suppose you might use some of these tools for if you're working in an early years setting, although I wouldn't expect that any of the children in the early years are perhaps writing Word documents yet. So I've got my class here. I'm going to go in here. What I'd like to show you is there's an assignment that I've already created. So we covered this in our previous webinar about creating an assignment. So I could go in via here and I'll just show that in a wee second, but I want to show one in the spirit of Blue Peter that I made earlier. So I've created this assignment on the Romans. And what I've asked the learners to do is they can use this BBC Bite Size website that I've linked to, but in case they don't have, they're unable to access that for any reason, I've simply copied the text from there and pasted it into a doc. So it looks similar to other word processors it might have used. I've just copied that text across, and for Richard, who's a student in my class, he'll be able to access either the web link to the BBC website on the Romans, or I've made him a text document that he can access, and this has got the information that he's going to need for his reading comprehension task that I've set him. So it's a text document, probably familiar with, and I've also got the link to the same information on the website. So if Richard, as I say, is a student in my class, he can go and access it either online or through his classroom. What I've then created is a Google Doc with some questions on it. So you can see here the name of the worksheet is up at the top. It's the Romans questions, which goes along with the Romans info. So hopefully quite familiar. It's ways that we're probably already working when we were in school. I've given him instructions here at the top of the page and then a question, and I'm hoping that the fact that I've put a box into the page, it's going to kind of direct Richard that that's where I would like his answer to go. So it's pretty straightforward. There's some questions based around information in the other text or on the website. And at the bottom of it, what I've added as well is a diagram that I would like Richard to label. And if he double clicks on that, he'll be able to open up like I have, and he can add text to those boxes. And save and close it. And I think that's quite a handy tool, the Google Drawings, to allow you to add those labelling diagrams a wee bit easier than you maybe could in other software applications. And the last part I've added is a slides a presentation software from Google, and I've titled it. I've added some slides down here on the side, and I've titled each one with a question, and that's just for my learners to go. I'd like them to do some research, and when they find their information, I'm just giving them that as a structure to add their information to, and that will obviously be different depending on each individual learner. So that's what I'd like to guide you through. What I'll get started with, what I'll just do is I'll take you through step by step how I created those resources using those the software from G Suite. Richard, can I just check, is there anything there, any questions coming up before I get started?
Just a couple, one from Caroline Patterson about the advantages using Docs over Word. They're both the same, to be honest, but you can use both. And as we've said before in the previous webinar, you can upload Word documents or existing Google Docs. It's entirely up to you, but they both basically do the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, I think...
Sorry, George.
No, I was just going to say, I think it'll come down to your own preference, as Richard says, but it might be if you're using Classroom, you might find that you can obviously use Microsoft Office 365 documents through Classroom, but you might find that it's just tying in. You can obviously, you'll see the advantages of using the G Suite documents in the Google Classroom. They're obviously designed to work together.
Yeah,
yep,
from Miss Brody, when they go to type the answers, it edits every child's sheet. Will they need to save the document separately, or will it not make a difference? Do you want, that's who you make it available to, George, yeah?
Yep, so I'll hopefully just show you that just now. So I'm going to create an assignment from scratch. Now I could create using Docs and create a doc and then share it through my assignment, but the way that I would recommend is start the assignment from here. So this one was the Romans, and I'm just going to call it Romans 2. I could add further instructions here. I won't at the moment. And what I'm then going to do is I'm going to create. So this is what I did earlier when I made these files. So I'm going to create a docs. And what's great is that's automatically saved. Google saves that straight away in your Google Drive, which is attached to the Classroom. The first thing I would recommend you do is you title your document so that you know what it is, and if you're sharing it with learners, they will know what it is. As I say, you can see when I'm titling it, it's telling me it's saving in my drive, and if I was to change and save it in any other Google Drive that you own or have access to, you can move where that goes in terms of files and folders in there. So if I wanted to save that in my literacy in English, I can select that and I'll move it to there. So it'll be available in the folder that I need it to be, which is quite handy. You can do that from Docs without having to go out to Drive to move things about. So we've got all our headings up at the top. And what I'd like to do is we'll have a look at inputting some text here. So you can see here as well, it's telling me that it was last edited a couple of seconds ago, and that's going to update every couple of keystrokes. It's going to save any changes I make. So that's handy as well, you're not losing any information. So what's really handy is we've named the document. If I go up to insert, I can select to insert an image, and you can upload those from your computer if you've already got them, your Drive, or any other files that are linked to your G Suite account. But what's handy is that Google is built in, so Google Search is built in. So I am doing some work on the Romans, and I've instantly got access to images that I can drag to populate my slides. If that was relevant, I can pop those straight in, or I can click on it and I can use the insert button to add those images to my document. So if you wanted to include an image for the learners to see, or you want them to insert images as part of their answers or any work, any learning that they're doing. So it's got Google built in, which I think is very handy, rather than having to go to a web page and search for an image, save it to your computer, name it, go into the Word doc, the document, the word processor to upload an image to get it from your computer and bring it in. You can do it straight from the web, which is handy there. So I've got a duplicate here. I'll delete that. So we can add images really easily because it's an online document. So that's one of the advantages that I really like about it. In terms of adding text, I can just add information by typing on the keyboard as normal. But again, where the online tools start to come into their own is if I go up to Tools at the top and I use voice typing. You can see that the microphone has come up on the side of the screen here. I am using Google Chrome for my web browser. Again, because it's Google, it sort of guarantees that some of these features will work. It should work on Edge or any other web browser that you're using, but there's that sort of compatibility. You know it should work with Chrome when you are using Google tools because that's how they're designed to work. So I can get started. If I type the microphone, it's asking me for permission to use my microphone, and if I allow that, new line, new paragraph. Had some problems with this, so new paragraph seems to work better than new line, and you can see that as I speak, it is dictating my words. Full stop. New sentence. You can see that I can also use some grammar instructions here. It does depend on the pace that you speak at and how clearly you enunciate. Obviously, the more deliberate my speech, the more accurate the voice typing is. Full stop. New paragraph. And you can indeed use, I'll just stop that for the demo. You can indeed use some grammar commands. You saw there, full stop and new paragraph, and it will do those as you go. There may be parts to go back and edit. So you can see up here, full stop. I may have to go back and do some editing, put some capital letters in, and you can see obviously the spell checker is running at the same time. That's live too. So maybe a wee bit of going back and editing, but I think if you are you or learners are finding it challenging to type at a speed, you could obviously type a lot quicker using your voice, or indeed if you've got learners who might find that difficult to do for whatever reason, they can use their voice to type. So that's quite a handy tool there. Also, if I go up, I'm going to close the voice typing function there just now, and if I make this bold and underline it, typo there, and what I hope you can see is over in this left hand side, this is my headings area, and when I make parts of the text on a line of their own bold or underlined, Docs is reading those as being headings, and it's creating these headings here on the page. Now, if I had a heading per page, so that each page was a section of the document, what you can see here is I can then use my headings to jump between sections in the document. So it creates a table of contents for you automatically if you use headings. So any text on a line of its own, you bold or underline it, it will recognise that automatically as a heading, and you can start to create sections in your text. So if you had a 20-page document, you can create those headings, and if something isn't, if it reads it as a heading by accident, you can delete that. So that's another one I find is quite handy in terms of learners laying out their learning. The next bit I'd like to show you is down in the bottom right corner. You can see the Explore tool. Anywhere you see this tool on G Suite apps, that's the option to explore. And if I press Explore, it is going to read my document. Should read my document. Let's get rid of this information. That's not relevant. So if I press Explore, it's hopefully going to read my document and recognise that I am speaking about the Romans, and it's giving me information about the Roman Empire, it's searched the web for me and it's given me links to, for example, Google Books and some history websites. So that could be useful here. So if I select Roman Empire, it's given me the Wikipedia result, encyclopedia. It's got lots of links here. So if your learners have to start a project from scratch, or you've given them a wee bit of information, as soon as they start typing about a topic, it is going to enable them to go and find that information quickly. So they can click on that, it'll take them straight to the website, they can see further information. And I can also use images, and it's going to give me images of the Roman Empire that it thinks might be relevant there. So again, I can select those and insert into my document. So for you to create a worksheet, there's lots of tools that help you pull these things together quickly. And for your learners, could be using these to answer questions. Again, there's some tools that make that a little bit easier for learners. So then if I've got the information in my information sheet like this, and I'm constructing my questions around that, all I've simply done is wherever I need learners to input an answer, I'm inserting a table, and I've just selected a one cell table for this, and it just makes it apparent, I think, to the learners when they are answering the questions, where the questions should be answered. And again, I can either copy or I can insert another table, but I'll show you that again. For example, insert table, one box, and I can edit that. So it's quite clear to my learners. I've then got the usual bits. I can add, obviously, numbers for the lines, and turn those on or off as required. So we can number our questions, we can add the text box to guide our learners where we want the answers and what it should look like. I think a lot of the features you'll then see are quite familiar. There, you can make read aloud available. Again, that might depend on your browser. I know that Edge has a built-in read aloud feature. The Google stuff makes use of browser extensions for that, and what I would guide you towards is the G Suite for Education page on Glow. So that's Glow Connect and it's G Suite for Education, and you'll see all of the information that you might need there. The apps and extensions part is quite useful. It does suggest that you contact your Glow key contact, whoever that is in your local authority, to either request that certain apps are made available, but you can get a reader app similar to Microsoft's Immersive Reader, but your authority have got to request that. So for example, I have one turned on there just now. The last part I'd like to show then is what I really like about Docs is I have the option to insert a drawing, and I can insert one I've already created, and a drawing is a particular Google app. It's one of their features. And again, I could draw freehand there, but I'm not quite at that ability level, so I'm going to search for Roman soldier. And if I can grab that image, there we go. So I'm going to insert that. I'm not using it for commercial purposes, and I'm then going to use this line tool, and I simply drag a line across. I can change features of the line, colour and the appearance of it, a bit brighter, and then what I'm going to do is insert a shape. So I could insert a text box, but I quite like the shapes. Insert a square here, or a rectangle, and now I can just select those two and I can copy and paste them, so I can just repeat those over and over. I'm just using keyboard shortcuts, that's Control and C for copy and Control and V for paste. So I've got my lines, I can adjust and edit those if they don't quite match the parts of equipment I'd like the learners to label, and when I save that, it's going to insert straight onto my worksheet, and I can put an instruction. And when my learners see that, when they click on the image, they will have the option to go in and edit the boxes, so they can add their information to that. And I think it just gives us a wee bit of interaction, a wee bit more than a plain text worksheet that we could be using with our learners. What I like about that is, rather than perhaps using another piece of software, I could use lines and boxes on the page, but then I've got that bit where they're, if it's in a drawing, it's all self-contained. So when I move this image, all of the boxes and the lines all move together. So I could do that individually and then group them, but I think it's quite handy that it's built into the insert through a drawing tool. So that's the kind of main parts of Google Docs. I've also got up in the tools, you've got access to a dictionary and some other bits in here. You've got spelling and grammar checks, so there's other parts to have a wee look at into there. You can translate the document, select a language. Let's try Bulgarian, for example, and it should create me a new copy of the document, but in Bulgarian, which might be handy for any other ESOL, ASL, or any other language needs. So I'm hoping that's accurate, but my Bulgarian is not up to scratch at the moment. I can then share that with the share options. I can choose whether the people I'm sharing it with can edit, comment, or view. I can create a shareable link. It's just going to save my document before it does that. And if you are sharing this, you've got to check who can. So that should be your local authority, or GLOW will be your options. Mine is obviously for the Education Scotland colleagues. And I can make it that anyone, or I can go in here and change it to anyone with the link. So if I had to share that with someone outside, but it's likely you're going to be using this with learners in your class. And again, just to make sure that they can edit if that's what's required, because it will automatically set as view. So I could then use that link and share it with people, but again, I've created that within my classroom, so that is going to be here.
Derek's asking about grouping the objects again. I think that was in the Romans document there, where you group everything together. So
what I've used for that is I could put an image in and then draw a line and use I can insert shapes and things from here, but what I want to do is, I find if I do it in a drawing, it pulls those all together for me. So it's insert a drawing. I've inserted an image, dinosaur this time. So I could grab an image of a dinosaur, select, and then it's just the line tool and the shape tool, and you can use whatever shapes and lines that you need to. And then when you press save, it will save all of that as one item. So that's if I can scale it and I can move it and everything adjusts together, it's not separate parts. Is that alright? So what I'll do is have a quick look at slides. If I go back and create slides from there as part of my assignment, and I think slides is quite straightforward. There's not a lot to it. So like other presentation software, so I typed mine's the Romans. I want learner's name in here. What's quite handy, on your keyboard, Control and M will insert a new slide for you. Or you can go across and you can create a new slide on the menu there. All I've done is ask questions that I want my learners to answer, and the advantages are, again, they can type away, they can type their information onto the screen that they've found from researching. They can search the web for, again, images, so they could find any information that's relevant and they can pop it into their presentation. And again, I think this feature is quite handy with the Explore button. So I've dropped an image on the slide there, but if I press Explore, it's going to do some auto layouts for me. So it's suggesting perhaps you want your slides like this or like this. and it saves me some of the hassle of editing and moving things about, but I might just have to pick the relevant layout to the image. But I can then go back and edit it so if the image doesn't sit as I need it to. And again, that's handy because it makes the slides look a wee bit better. It's got a kind of professional look to it rather than something you or your learners have just made up on the fly. But also it hopefully means that learners are going to, and yourself, will spend less time editing the look, the appearance of your presentation, because you can get slides to do that for you. So that's quite handy. Also, if you need some further images, you can search and explore, and again go to the web. So if we need to know facts about the Romans, I can quickly open that up, find any information I need, and I could copy and paste that back across. But I would really be encouraging my learners here to use their own words. So it's handy that they can find that research information easily, but I would be asking them personally, for my learners, I would want them writing that in their own words. They could use images that they find, insert different files and images from their computer here. So there's different ways of adding images to there. You can use voice typing here as well. Unfortunately, you don't seem to be able to type in unless they've changed this. You can't type your slides, but you can voice type the speaker notes. I guess the thinking here is all the design ideas would tell you that you're ideally wanting very little text on your slides. Your presentation should be more graphical, and your speaker notes is where you're going to have the bulk of your text. So I can again voice type my speaker notes. It brings up this microphone, and when I press that, it goes red, and it should hopefully dictate or type quite accurately as I dictate. Again, I think if learners have got to create a presentation and they don't have to worry about adding too much information or typing, they can use the voice type feature for that. You've also got, in terms of tools, you have got Spellcheck built in as well. So if they do type here, it would hopefully pick up the grammar there in Romans. But if I have quite a deliberate mistake, it's going to pick that up. And if I right click, it's telling me there's something wrong with that. Did I mean live? I did indeed. So it's quite crisp and clean. There's a few tools again in terms of adding text boxes and images. You can draw shapes, play with colours and fonts, etc. But I think the fact that we try to encourage learners to use that explore button to create slides that are a wee bit better to look at and a wee bit quicker than footing about with transitions and different bits. If you need to present this, you go up to view and present, and there's some handy tools in there, but I think at the moment we're probably steering clear. It's unlikely we'd be doing a live presentation to learners. It's perhaps you're creating notes for them to look at, or you're asking them to create a presentation about something that they've been researching or learning about. But it will live caption when you're back in the classroom. If you're using slides to present, you can use captions, and it will add subtitles to the screen as you speak. So that could be quite useful for learners that have perhaps a hearing impairment or any other language support needs there. So that's it for me. I think for the slides, they're pretty straightforward. They're probably very similar to other presentation software that you've used. But I think I like the fact that it's quite crisp and clean to look at. You've got the explore button, and you've got that voice typing for your speaker notes. Richard, any questions on that?
No, just a couple ones very quickly. Miss Campbell was asking about Word document. I have some pupils who cannot access Google Docs, etc. I usually email them a Word document. Would this inserting a drawing still work with a Word document we do? If you inserted it in a Word document and shared the Word document on the Google Classroom, yeah, they would see it and they would be able to go into it, yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think obviously just Word doesn't have that insert drawing. That is a Google feature, so I guess you could create the drawing and then you could copy that into a Word document if that's what you were using. You can indeed, if you can see my screen here, back in my assignments, you can add a link to other files, and you can link to, if you were using Office 365 apps, you can link to those, and if you've got perhaps files that you've already created in your OneDrive, you can copy them across to your Google Drive and you can link to them here as well. So you could use Office 365 documents, but if you are using Classroom, you'll find Classroom works a wee bit better. It's a wee bit happier when they are Google apps that it's linking to, but it will work with others. Just as well, here in this page, you can see when I've created those documents, I'm sure once I assign that and refresh the page, it will add in the titles for the Romans that I've created. And this is quite useful here. It's automatically set to students can view the file, but if I select this box, I can make it that students can edit the file. And that means that any learner in my class would be able to access and change that document. And that's great for collaboration, but if I want individual learning returned, I'm going to use the third option, which is make a copy for each student. And that means that when the student clicks on that link, it will make a new copy. So it would be called, for example, Romans Comprehension for Richard, and he would have his own copy. And then as the learners submit those for marking and feedback and the assignments, the teacher can see each copy of each learner's learning sheets. So that's quite important there. You might want them, you could create a presentation called the Red Group presentation and allow them to edit, and that means that the learners in the Red Group could work on a collaborative presentation, same for a doc. But again, if you want individual returns, you're going to make a copy for each student. So that's quite important at this step. Okay, just make sure that you've set it under the relevant topic, just to help you keep track of your assignments. And I'm going to assign that away just now. And that's me done with my literacy. So what I want to look at next is forms. I'm just going to close some of my tabs here to make my browsing a little easier. So in the numeracy one, what I've done is I've created a quiz. I'm aware I've called it maths quiz, but it is indeed some numeracy. What I've done is I've got the title at the top. I'm recommending using these MathBot tools because I've got some online manipulatives that are great for numeracy. I've added a video so I can flip the learning. I could give my learners some video that might perhaps I've created or I've found on YouTube and I found that useful and relevant. Again, also check what you're sharing links to. So I've used a BBC Teach one. Learners can watch the video and then they could answer the questions. In this case, the video is not terribly relevant to the questions. I've just done it as a demonstration. And then the learners are going to go down, which counters show 5. So it's a bit of subitizing, and they should be able to look at that, mark their answer. Which number does the 5-digit represent? How many 2s are there in the 10? So I've used the fraction strips there. I've got my fraction strips here. In fact, that's my Cuisenaire rod, sorry. And I've got some fraction strips at the bottom, some number coins. So I've taken these images, I've created them using MathSpot. I'll demonstrate that quickly. And then what's great about the quizzes in Google Forms is it lets me add either a question, an image per answer, or an image per question. So you can see here, each the question doesn't have an image, but each answer, A, B, and C, has its own image. But in this question here, the picture, the image is attached to the question, and then the suggested answers they don't have images attached to them. So there's different ways you can do that. What I've also set up as well is I've put links into the assignment. So when I created that assignment for my learners, I've added some links using the add and link button to the YouTube video and the MathSpot site that I found was useful for those tools. I've also created a Jamboard. If I open that, if you've not used Jamboard, it is part of the G Suite tools. You'll find it up in the app selector. It's the icon here, and it's effectively a whiteboard. So again, I can get my learners to write on the screen. I'm using my mouse just now, a wee bit bumpy. and again, I can add new pages to that. I can also save the images, but I'll come back to these in a wee second. So what I'll do is I'll get started with the quiz, so how I made my quiz, and I'll just create a new assignment again. So I can create a new quiz assignment, and when I do that, so numeracy demo 2, forgive my typing there, and it's created a quiz for me automatically. So when I select that quiz, and just to be sure, again, the difference between a form and a quiz, you can use either. A form allows you to gather information from users, so it's great for evaluations, perhaps doing a wee check-up at the end of learning and see what learners thought, but a quiz lets you mark it and provide feedback, so that's an important differentiation. If at any point you realise that you've built a form but you wanted it to be a quiz and it's not letting you have the option for assessment, if you go up to the settings button at the top, you've got some other options in here, so I can limit it to 1 response per person, so they can't go in and submit 2 or 3. I can allow them, it's automatically turned off, they can't go back and edit it once they've submitted it if they've spoken to their pal and realised they've got a couple of questions wrong, so I'm going to leave that unticked. I can change the way it presents, so I can shuffle the question order, so as that each time each learner accesses it, they get the questions in a different order. So again, they can't be messaging their pal and saying, what did you get for number 3? Obviously, if they describe the problem on the question, they might get an answer, but just makes it a wee bit more challenging there. And quizzes, if you didn't have it created as a quiz, if you've built a form, what I really like about this, you don't get in other similar apps, is you can turn it into a quiz with the flick of a button. So it is going to allow me to add answers even if I didn't build it as a quiz in the first place. I can also choose when to release the mark, so immediately after submission, so no longer will you have that child in your class who asks you after lunchtime if you've marked all of their assessment and want feedback instantly, but you can do that with this, or you can keep it and you can withhold feedback and any automatic marking of the assessment. You can hold that back until you want to release that, so it gives you a wee bit of control as the teacher. But I'm going to leave it on as immediate because I like that in terms of immediate feedback. If we can shorten that feedback cycle, makes the learning a wee bit more relevant for the learners. So this was called Numeracy Quiz 2, and I can add any further instructions in here and below, so you can describe your form if you need any other instructions there. I've also got my toolbar at the side here, and I can add an image if that's useful, and I can add a video. So if it's automatic want to use YouTube, and let's just stick to BBC numeracy, and we'll see what it brings me. So yeah, this might be the one that I'm doing, and that's relevant, so I can select it, or I can choose another, but whichever video I've selected with the blue box, select, and it's going to add that in here. So I could give learners just a simple instruction to watch the video, then answer questions below. Again, if I was going to have a couple of sections like this, I can use the copy button, the duplicate. I can also get rid of it with the bin if I need to, and there's an option to caption here, so if I need to add any further instructions for users there. If I go down to my questions, so you automatically generate with one question. To add another question, I simply use the wee toolbar at the side and press add a question, and it will put another question in here for me. You can use different types of questions, so a short answer will allow them to insert text. The difficulty with that is if you asked them what is 2 times 5 and you wanted the answer to be 10, when it comes to the marking key, with the answer key, add a correct answer. If you put in 10, however, if a learner types the word 10, so you might want to define a couple of different versions. If you are going to use a text answer, space 10, they might be really good and put a full stop in. But if they don't put exactly what you've put, it will mark it wrong, and they might be quite close. So text answers, not always best for the automatic assessment, but you can try and mitigate some of that with typing different answers in there. But I would expect if they were using maths and numeracy, they would put the digits in for their answer. You do have an option. You can mark all their answers as incorrect, or you can leave that open and you can go back and do some manual feedback. So there are options with that. But for this demonstration, I'm going to suggest sticking to multiple choice. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use as I say, I'm just recommending using the options here from MathSpot. So the MathSpot website, if you're not familiar with it, it's free to use, and if I come here and select Manipulatives, I've got a whole range here. So let's use the coins, for example, and if I grab these coins, I can pull them across on the web. I can save that image as it is, and it will grab some other parts of the screen. This little button just puts it up to full screen. So it's up to you whether or not you use that. If you select the image, you can save it. As you can see, Chrome puts the wee download file here in the corner. And if I go back to my quiz, so if I'm asking my learners how much is shown here, I can select to add an image, and all I need to do is just drag that wee image that I created on MathSpot, and G Suite will insert it for me. So again, you might want to download the images and edit them so that it doesn't show these coins here, but I'm focusing, hope my learners are going to realise these are just the menu coins, but how much is shown here. So I can put in an incorrect 30. Let's go for another incorrect one, £1.50. And my third option, which I'm going to have as my correct one, is £2.60. So what I want to then do is go to my answer key, and I'm going to tell Forms that this is the correct answer. And you'll see when I select that, it's got the green tick, and I can answer and add some answer feedback. So I could say well done for the correct answer, but I'm really going to focus more on the incorrect answers. That's where I really want to give my feedback. It'll be the most effective. So I can send them to go and have a look at those, go and have a look at the coins, and hopefully they can count it. Try the counting strategies we were developing in class. And again, it might be a wee while since you've done that with your learners. So again, it might be about, you can share them a link to a website. So if you've got a website that has that information about how to do those counting strategies, you can put that link in here. Or you can go to a YouTube video. And again, I've not checked this video, so obviously you would want to check before you shared the video with your learners. But for example, here's somebody's got a video about counting coins, so if you know it's the right video, or perhaps you've created one yourself, you can link to that in the answer. And when Richard goes to do the assessment, if he got it wrong, it will show him this video and say, here's how you count the coins, so you can provide your learners with a support strategy as part of their assessment here. And again, I'd probably be framing this as a low stakes quiz rather than an assessment. So that's adding a question. We can add the images to them, and it's the exact same to, if I add a question here, which is 2, 1/2. And when I create the options, I can add an image. So I'm going to create my image here in MathSpot first. In this instance, I'll use the fraction wall. So what is equal to 1/2? I'll do one with 2/4 on there. And I'll do one with, put the half on for reference, which one was equal to 1/2. So I can put that for reference there. Put my fifths away. And if I save the image, I'll do another one with the fifths. So bring my fifths back across, and I can save that image. Then when I'm creating my questions, I can add an image. I'm going to put in the 2/4 first, and then I can add another option for another answer. There is obviously limitations to having multiple choice where you're given a suggested answer. You might want to partner that up with, as I say, you could have some worked examples on the Jamboard, which I'll show you just a wee moment before we finish. So again, I can go into that answer key and I can tell it which one is going to be the correct answer. And if they've not answered it correct, I might want to link to that page or a video showing how to use the fractions to check an answer. Richard, have we got any questions on that?
Yeah, not on quizzes, but from Bigger High School asked a really good question about is a translation option in slides. As far as I can see, no, which is unfortunate. But you could translate in docs and then copy and paste over into slides.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's probably what I would do as well, Richard.
But no questions on quizzes. Looks good all so far, George.
And again, it's obviously part of my assignment, so if I press send, that will now go out to my learners. What I want to show then, lastly, is on Jamboard, so I can add a link to a file. So I've got to do Jamboard a wee bit separately here. So I'm going to come out of that assignment. I'm going to use the app selector. I'm going to open Jamboard. So you see I've already got some jams that I've created, I've used for other things. To create a new one, use the orange plus button at the bottom and it will create me a new jam. Again, I just want to go up to top left and name it. Again, there's different backgrounds, so you've got the dots, lines and squares. Again, I quite like the darker grey just for the appearance of my screen. And with this, I've got a pen tool, I've got an eraser, select some post-its, some stickies, and I can add an image. So again, I want to use that add an image. If it's let me drag, in fact, it'll let me drag a pre-downloaded one. If I go to here, I can drag that image that I've already created in MathSpot. I can expand on that. And again, I'm using a touch device at the moment, which is useful. So if I was talking about using a count and stick to count, work out my multiplication facts using the sort of VIP approach there. If I was wanting to work out my 6 times table, and I've got times 1, times 2, times 3, times 4, times 5, times 6, times 7, 8, 9 and 10. I hope nobody pulls me on my numeracy. Here, obviously, we've all got different approaches. But I should know, as a learner, I should know 6 times 1 is 6. Hopefully I would know my 2 times table, so I would know 6 times 2 is 12. I'll know 6 times 5 is 30, and 6 times 10 is 60. And you could be doing this with a learner. If you've got a shared Jamboard, you could be working through with a group. So you might share this Jamboard to a group in your class or a number of learners. I could be doing it with... I could record this, I could use Jamboard and I could use a screen recorder to capture this, and I could do a worked example to share with my learners. Or again, it might be that you're setting a task like this and asking them to use what they know about the VIP numbers to complete the rest of that. So you might just, again, make it clear that you want them to do it in a different colour of pen. I should know that 12 add on 6 is 18, 30 add on 6 would be 36, and 60 take away 6 is going to give me 54. So I've added in some more details on my number line there, and I would then be able to use some of those facts, like 30 take away 6 is going to help me get. So whichever approaches you take to counting and numeracy in your class, but I thought Jamboard was quite effective because it effectively acts as a whiteboard. Again, to take a new page with that, I can go up to the top and I can flip between pages here that I've created. Again, you could put a post-it in here and say, perhaps we're doing some social subjects learning, and we were learning about locks. what do we know about locks? So I can pose a question on a sticky note. And again, if this is a collaborative piece that I'm sharing with learners, they would be able to go up and add an image. So they could use Google image search, or they could use ones on their own computer. Let's see what they know about. So they may have done this in the slides presentation. They've learned about logs. They know some of these facts, and you just want to capture it in this page. So learners can add images, and they can add text, and they can write on it if they've got a touch device. And you can grab lots of different examples from different learners. And what's really good is up here in the sort of vertical ellipsis, you see dots here, is you can download your Jamboard as a PDF, or you can save this page as an image. So again, perhaps in the classroom for your KWL, you were planning a new topic, a new area of learning, and you might ask learners what they already know and get lots of post-its or lots of comments on a big sheet of paper. For me, this does the same thing, but virtually. So that could be it's quite a versatile tool. It's quite useful. There's options here to make a copy if you want to start from a jam that you've made. And again, just when you go to share that, you want to make sure that you're sharing with, I'm going to make it anyone with the link from my classroom, so they can only access it from my class. And I want them to be able to edit it with these options. So who can access it? I want them to be able to, anyone to access it. I want them to be able to edit. When I save that, I then got to copy this link, press done, and back in my classroom, I can either post that into Stream, or I can add it to an assignment. And it now means that the learners in my class can go in, they can select that, and they can access it. If instead of numeracy you were doing some formal calculations, if I go into you might want to zoom for this, find a new space, and again using the pen, I can go 1 digit per box. No ruler tool, I'm afraid. That might, I know, upset some people, but I've just drawn it freehand, so I can do my calculation there. And if my learner made an error here, so take away 2, 0, if I put 6 here, take away 2, as the teacher, you can go in and you could maybe put a wee suggestion on there, or you could add a post-it, a wee sticky note there with maybe some other information for them. So you could get learners to use that as a jotter. And again, laid out correctly, 1 digit per box, and however you perform those calculations in your class or your authority, I'll leave that up to you. So those were some of the tools. So for me, I think quizzes, you could use quizzes, Jamboard, slides and docs for absolutely any area of the curriculum, but just some of those examples I thought might be quite relevant for learners and teachers being stuck at home at the moment. The last wee part I think is probably just worth showing is in my classroom. If you're already using it, you'll be familiar with this, but every time I create a file, it's putting it into the class drive folder. So this is my class drive, and I've got my folders for different topics which are automatically created, and everything I've made today will be in one of these. Either the document will be here. There's an earlier one that had Roman reigns instead of the Romans. But anything I've created today is already in here, and that's shared with my learners. So the learners can go in and access those files if they are available to them. So that's G Suite for me. I hope that's been some use to you. I'm just wondering if we get any questions before we finish up and summarise.
Just a few quick ones, George.
Yep.
Isabel is asking, not sure how we are sharing using Jamboard with learners. I think George has shown you just another way of using the apps within G Suite. If you didn't think your learners could maybe access a Word document, they could certainly maybe add to the number line that he's created. So it's just another way of using a resource. Myself and George had a conversation yesterday about what we would use this for in a kind of digital environment, and it certainly can just be used as a kind of whiteboard to get your children to populate pieces of work. George, you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that's exactly what we discussed. It's just a whiteboard. You could use it for anything at all. As I say, what's maybe worth showing here is if I add the link to my assignment, so that was the assignment I'd created for numeracy, and if I add that link in here, I've got the options again where students can view the file. So if I wanted to make a series of worked examples on how to do a calculation, or if I had, instead of using slides, I'd created a presentation about the Romans or the locks using Jamboard, I can make it that learners can only view that. I can make it collaborative so students can edit the file, and that means that any learner in my class can go in and they can all contribute to that Jamboard, so everyone can add their own pictures or their own post-its there. Or I can set it up as a workbook using a copy for each document, and each learner would get their own copy of that, so it'd be like having their very own whiteboard.
Just a couple of quick ones, George. Can you just show people very quickly where to get Jamboard from, up at the top right-hand side?
Yep, so if I'm in Classroom, once you've reached Classroom at any part of it, from the home page to within each classroom, the top right, the app selector, and you have to just scroll down through the options, and it's here.
And last one, a really good question. Just want to find it from Caroline regarding, can I move files saved on docs to OneDrive? Yes, you can. You can also save the docs as Word documents, I believe, so they will transfer seamlessly from Google to a Microsoft platform. But yeah, you can, and you can move them back from OneNote if you have documents already created. So it's toing and froing both ways. It can go either way, depending on what your needs are.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that, what I can just show you here is on my full Google Drive here. This wee icon tells me that this is a docs file. So there it is sitting in my Google Drive. It's a docs file I created. And if I scroll down further, you can see here this one, it's a Word file. So I can indeed copy, save, or link Office 365 documents into Drive, and it will open and it will let me access that. And I also have the option, if I right click on it, I can open it with Google Docs. So if you have perhaps been using Office 365 and you find that you've got a few Word documents, but if you find it more useful as you go to use Docs, there is an option, if this will load, to then save it as a docs file. So once you've created it in Word, you can indeed upload it to Drive and then convert it to a docs file. But it looks like that's taking a wee bit of time there, so I'll leave that to work in the background. But yes, same for PowerPoints as well. I've got a couple of PowerPoints in here that I've created, and I can upload them as PowerPoint and then convert them to slides. Or I can leave PowerPoints here in my Drive, so it's very versatile, as Richard says.
And I think that one that's come up a few times, again, as it did previously in the last Google webinar, was about sharing. There's different ways to share. You can share via the share button, or you can share via the settings, or you can also share via the options within the assignment you set. From my point of view, my understanding is that it's just duplication. There isn't a right and a wrong way to share. It's just the way you prefer to share and how you want to share with your learners.
Absolutely. For me, I much preferred using the assignments, and when I create an assignment and share any learning activities that way, just because it lets me categorise them by topic as well. But again, I could create them, as Richard says, in my Drive, and I could create the individual files and then share them. It's really up to you. But personally, I like to use the assignments to create the resources, or create the resources but share them through an assignment. That also means that if you're sharing them as an assignment, you can then keep track of your learners and what tasks they have completed, and how they are progressing with those, provide feedback, and lots of different tracking options here through marks if you're using assignments. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I think that's it, George.
Brilliant.
I'm just going to post a question.
So I hope those examples were relevant. The ideas on how to use the tools and some of the demonstrations of where buttons and options are in the tools were useful. Superb. If that's everything, then I'm going to finish off this webinar. Thank you so much for joining.